I was at the gas station by my house the other day, the Fast Trip, the one, and I pulled up and the guy was like, "Hey, can I wash your windows?" And I was like, "You can, but I don't have any cash." He's like, "Oh, that's okay. Can I just wash them anyway, just because I want to do something nice for you?" I was like, "Oh my gosh, that melted my heart."
Wow, we would have never believed this. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple, we're on Google. Go out there and listen to us. So we're excited about it. We're glad you're excited about it too.
Hey everyone, welcome to Lunch Break. So glad to have you here. Today we're doing a little bit something special, which we're doing a couple of these episodes, trying to mix something up a little bit, trying to bring something topical that hopefully will minister to you guys, edify you guys, encourage you guys.
Lunch Break just has a different style, and we're just embracing it.
We are.
Yeah.
So today we're talking about serving and service and just being a servant.
Well, we're talking about servant leadership, I think,
we are.
Really.
Yeah, that's pretty much
and I
what
love
it
it,
is.
Mike, because you're bringing in our model, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So, I want to just kind of start with a story. Actually, I would probably start with a couple stories, but the first story I had is about how I started my business. And I don't know if you fully even know this, Tom.
I don't.
So
I remember in Visalia when I hired you, and you came up there and you knocked out a project for me.
Yeah. Well, that's
Visalia
just
church.
how we roll.
Yeah, it is.
Now they're even better now that I got team and they pulled me off of the operational side. But I was working at the church at the time, and right, the job at the church came because of just serving, and I would serve so much that, which is interesting. We were talking about that friend of ours, right? It was just like I would serve so much that like someone came to me and was like, "Hey, do you want to just get paid to do this?"
Because you're doing it, it's a value and it's a service.
Right.
Mike was alluding to a friend that we have that just wants a job, and he wants people to give him a job.
Yeah. So
for not much offered in return.
So I did it, and I took the job, and I'm doing it, and I had a great time. I loved it, and I was working with you, Tom, and we had a relationship that transcends that even prior, and we worked together quite a bit, but there was this time, another good friend of mine, and you've known for a long time, Ernie Waldo.
Ernie's an amazing man.
Yeah, I love him dearly.
Ernie
honestly.
and Patty and Charity.
Yeah, he knows that. He knows how much I love him.
Great family.
And we were at lunch one day, and he said, "Hey, I'm not going to probably have a day off for a couple months." I was like, "Huh? Why?" Well, now knowing Ernie, I was like, "Oh, that's just how he rolls, right?" But
knowing Ernie, that is how he rolls.
But I said, "Well, why?" He's like, "Well, I got this. I help some friends of mine basically with some IT stuff on the side." I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, why don't you just let me hang out with you and help you out?" And I was married, but I didn't have any kids at the time. I said, "We can get some guy time. We can have some fellowship. I can have some mentor time, and I can help you. And hopefully, you can take some more time off to spend with your family." And
that's really who you are, Mike.
Yeah, and I even said, and I legitimately meant this, and he knows this as well. I said, "You don't need to pay me. This is just us hanging out, and I'm helping a friend." So
sometimes those are best things the way they start out.
And so we did that. And several months down the road, he said, "Hey, listen, I just have too much on my plate. Why don't you take this off my plate? You can have it. The clients already know you, and take it over." Well, and I'm giving you a very succinct version, but we went from that to like basically me just kind of volunteering. That's how even the media company started, but that's a whole nother story. Me volunteering, helping out to, fast forward, a decade and a half later, and we have a team, many people in multiple states that work for us, and which we love. We love every single one of them dearly, and they know that. But that all came through service. So the second story I have to share with you guys is about how I met my wife, and I think you know this story, Tom.
I kind of do, and I like it because I like the fact that your family was protecting Davia from
they
you.
were. They didn't do quite a good enough job, but that's another story. And so my wife was going to a different church, the same church my parents were going to, because I was still going to Valley Bible, and they were going to another church. I think it was called Ridgeview or something like that, and she was on the worship team, and they were in charge of the college ministry at the time. So they had worship practice at their house, and I had moved away to Van Nuys, L.A., California, for just a couple months, and I was trying to get out on my own, trying to find myself really more than anything. And I moved back, and I came over to my parents' house. I spent a lot of time there, obviously, young as my parents and all that. And I came in, and I was like, "Who is this girl?"
That's where it starts,
Yeah.
right?
But we would have never met had she not been involved in serving on the worship team. So yeah.
I love that. I love that. I wish I could tell you, we did a Valentine's special, and my wife and I were on there, and we shared something which my kids always tell that I share too much. But my wife and I were heathens when I first saw her, because we met in a bar, and I had my buddy John Haddad, which you've met and done work for, actually.
Yep.
They own a lot of dealerships, car dealerships. And Tiffany walked through the door because he'd been wanting to set me up, because I just went through a divorce that ended after 11 years of marriage. My fault. Wasn't a good deal. And he always was trying to set me up. And I was like, no, I don't want to be set up. All of a sudden, Tiffany walked through the door, and I was like, yeah, her. Of course, he said that's going to be a little problem because she has a boyfriend. And I go, how much of a problem? Well,
that's guys, right?
We've been married almost 29 years, so that tells you that
it wasn't that much of a problem.
But the problem was we didn't change. So to add on to your story, Mike, we headed down a bad road and we broke up. But in between the breakup and us coming back together, I got saved. So then I just started serving.
Okay.
I just started serving, doing Bible studies, and then one night, after about a year and a half, my wife called me and left a message on my machine. And I had returned her call, and first thing she said to me was, Tom, I've heard you changed. And I go, yeah, I have. She goes, I heard you got religious. I go, well, I've accepted Jesus Christ into my heart. Would you like to do that? And then boom. But it was because I started serving and helping Doug Lohman, which was at our church this weekend. Doug and I got to catch up on it.
Doug.
But I just invested my life, and I was a vice president of an IT department at an international agribusiness farm, so I was quite busy.
Very large business.
But I was able to help Doug with the men's ministry and Promise Keepers, and I sunk myself into it. And as we're serving God, he starts to fill in those details over in Matthew 6:33. Seek ye God's kingdom, his righteousness, and he takes care of it.
I don't know if I could say this is true for everyone, but I know it's true for me, and I know it's true for a lot of people I know, a lot of friends of mine. If you just get busy doing God's work, and that doesn't necessarily mean just doing stuff at the church every Sunday, right? It could be something different, right? But if you get busy doing God's work and just focus on him, like
he comes around and fills in the details.
He does.
It's funny, if you've been out there and you're old as I am, old as the hills, there was a thing that it was called goo, G-O-O, and you would put it in your tire when there was a flat. Maybe you get a go hood in your tire. You would squeeze it, and it would seal up all the holes.
Yeah.
So I see that. I always feel that God is the goo. He'll fill up the holes once you start serving him.
Right. But so how do we apply this to our lives? And I wrote down a couple verses here, and one was Mark 10:45, and I'm going to paraphrase it.
Well, it actually says, Mike, that the Son of Man did not come to be served,
right,
but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. I love the verse that says, if you seek to save your life, you'll lose it. But if you lose your life for his sake, you'll find it. Yeah.
Well, and doesn't, and I don't know what the address is, but it also says in the Bible, the first shall be last and last shall be first, right? So like if you seek to just serve others, like Jesus was glorified and lifted up, but I think he does the same for us, right?
It's the model, Mike, and I think Jesus came along as a prototype for human beings.
That's right.
You theologians, don't get all over me on this. This is a phrase I'm using. He is my prototype. So however I look to Jesus, and if I'm going to base things on the Bible, I'm going to the Gospels. I'm going to the red letters all the time. Because we can argue about other written stuff, but I'm going to the red letters. And you could say that maybe they were misinterpreted, but they pretty much give you a good direction. Your compass will point you north.
Yeah. But we've seen people who are arrogant and proud and boastful, and the thing is, they don't always get knocked down on earth, right? But they will. The Bible says every knee will bow, every tongue will confess at some point.
I think a lot of generations have their ones, and the one that I think about that comes to my mind was Steve Jobs,
That's the one I was thinking of too.
because very wealthy man.
Very.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
all the money in the world, and had a health problem.
He tried to buy his way out of it.
And I'm not saying God caused that to
No,
come upon
no.
him. We're in a fallen state, Mike. We
are.
know this. I got a heart issue that was partially brought on by my anabolic steroid use
Yeah.
when I was young and dumb, in my athletic career, and then brought on by blood doping and all the bad things that you shouldn't do. And I did them, so I actually perpetuated a problem with my heart condition, hardening of the arteries, which anabolic steroids are known to do. And a lot of people out there don't want to get credit for them doing that, but they do that.
Well, one of the things that I found interesting, and if hopefully this is something that you guys can take away as a nugget too. A good friend of mine, Paul Bentham, your friend now too.
Yeah.
And he and we were just chatting today over text. And he we were talking one day about, did God cause this to happen, or did God allow this to happen, or whatever. He says sometimes it's not necessarily either. It's just the fact that we live in a broken, corrupted world.
And sometimes it's things that gets our attention. God knows how to get my attention.
He does.
He does. And he'll use things in my life that he might not use in your life.
Yeah.
Or your life,
Yeah.
Mike. And but when it starts happening, I start to recognize this is him. Little bell starts to go off. God, could this be you? What do I need to correct or put in place in my life to make things possibly have a better outcome? And I think that's something available to all of us. And there again, do you always have to go back to the Bible? I'm just going to say you don't, because you can be successful, but I don't think you can be eternally successful.
That's the key.
That
right?
is the key.
Because we've seen a lot of people that are successful here on this earth.
Well, Mike, I do a lot of weddings and I do a
Yeah.
lot of funerals. So I get to see life beginning for a young couple, and usually I'll get to see when babies are born, be around them. But also I'm there on people's very a special day when they're being maybe transitioning over. I always like to look to people in the eyes and look at them and go, hey, you're going to close your eyes, you're going to wake up, you're going to be in a new place.
You were there for my mother-in-law.
Yes, I was. So as you're there for those moments, people know. And there's people that are experts in these fields now. We're talking about people experts in the field.
Yeah.
Death and dying. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross is one of the ones, and she wrote, I think, 3 books on the subject, life after death.
Yeah.
And that's a very, very, very interesting topic. You can go out there and read all you want to do. And I did when my mom was passing away, when she was in hospice care. She was in hospice care for 10 days. And most profound 10 days of my life, because I was doing research on the process. What's going on here? And so it is. So eternal life as important as the physical life. And the Bible says us old people, we start to groan for that moment. Because
Yeah.
I do talk to so many. My mom, for one, it's like, Tom, when is God just going to take me? And I go, I don't know, Mom. You got a purpose here till he's ready.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I can't remember I can't remember where I saw this recently, and of course it's not necessarily news, but it was a good reminder. God doesn't necessarily want you to be rich or necessarily want you to be poor. He will use whatever tools necessary to put you in the position he wants you in to serve him.
Well,
right?
Mike, he wants us to be content.
He does.
Paul said that. I've learned. Contentment is a learning process. Paul said, I learned to be content with little, and I learned to be content with a lot. And I think when you find yourself, my wife and I were talking about it, because when we came into the ministry, when I left my corporate job, I took a 2/3 salary cut. And I've never made that back up in the ministry, but I never expected to.
Sure.
I gave that up to come into the ministry to help people. And I've done that for 30 years. And that was my commitment. Now I'm moving on to other things. But my wife and I said that we made it through that time. Did we have to cut back on things? Yes, we cut back. I sold a car. We had one car. I remember doing some things for my daughters where I ate top ramen for a year on Wednesdays because it fit the budget.
Yeah.
But I did it.
My kids like top ramen.
Like I do too.
I know, right?
I
We're not
did-
supposed to. Steve didn't hear that, right?
You mix a little chicken in there. But I'm just saying. You can survive
Yeah.
if you're doing something that matters. You can.
Yeah, but anyway, we talk about success, and it's success in God's eyes, not success in the world's eyes.
Yeah.
Now, I actually think success in the world's eyes additionally can be attained through service, but it's because God wants your heart.
Yeah,
right?
how do you define the success? Right now, our church is in our devotions, and we're in Daniel.
Yeah.
We see 4 distinct people being taken into captivity: Daniel, Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego.
Yeah.
And, people will say there's only 3. I mean, that's up to you theologians, not me. But they were taken into captivity, and they kept some of their own lifestyles that they had to negotiate.
Mm-hmm.
But they worked their life out, and they were all successful. God's kingdom and in the world. But you can go back to those characters in the Bible. King Solomon, probably the richest man that's ever walked the earth, right? According to archaeologists and people who can have.
But what did he ask for when God said you can have anything
He
you
asked
want?
for wisdom to rule God's people, not his people.
Yeah.
He didn't look at it as his
So he
people.
started out with the right heart.
He did. He really did. He ended up marrying 300 women.
Yeah, I went a little sideways there. But
I'm good with one.
yeah, so
Committed to.
So then the next verse I had looked up on this was James 4:10, and we've all heard this verse, at least most of us have, is humble yourself before the Lord and he will exalt you, right? And I think that is also part of that heart of servant leadership, serving others.
Mike, humility is a very important thing, but it's so hard. And I think it's hard for all humans because we all want to have notoriety. I mean, my wife will tell you, my wife's the superintendent of the school district, but she's been the highest position in administration in the private sector and the public sector.
Mm-hmm.
But she'll say all the kids, and we have a good friend named John L. Ward,
Yes.
who really believes in shoe identification before personal identification.
Yeah.
So he's just like, kids want to be known, and if they have a pair of the cool kicks, that's kind of an elevation of status. So the humility part is basically saying, I'm going to think less of myself and more of others. And it's a hard place to come to.
Yeah.
Because we all, kind of get buy into that selfishness. I always tell people we're kind of born with that. And if you don't think so, go to a preschool and look at 2-year-olds. No one teaches them how to go, mine.
No, that's like the first word they learn.
Yeah, take it, and usually there comes violence in it too.
Right.
Like they whack each other. Not saying it's okay. I'm just saying it's something I've recognized over the years.
So I think that goes into kind of my next point about this is why does it matter, right? And I've seen that as like it matters because our heart, it's our heart condition, right?
Yes.
Because what did God harden Pharaoh's heart, right? And because he didn't want to serve others, he just wanted to serve himself.
And see a purpose for others in serving him.
Yeah.
And made their job harder.
Right.
Well, the Hebrew people say.
Just to make it harder.
Yeah.
For no other reason.
Now we got to make brick without straw.
Yeah.
Just
figure that one out.
Yeah. It says the quality has to be the same.
But it
agree.
matters because God wants to know our heart belongs to him because God loves people, right? And he's God is love. And he says, love the Lord God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself.
Yes.
Right. And
boy, is that hard sometimes.
Oh, it is. Yeah. It is.
And I think it goes back into the whole state of interpersonal relationships.
Mm-hmm.
There again, I mean, I saw my neighbor today. We always say hi. We haven't got much farther than that, but just friendly because he's busy. He's got,
Sure.
I think 4 or 5 kids.
Yeah.
He's a teacher and he's a wrestling coach and all kinds of stuff. Good man, good family. But you don't get to know him sometimes. But my other neighbors, Tina and Jim, on the other side of me, I know them very, very, very well.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're supposed to consider them more important than yourself, which is, wow, what a tall task that is.
That goes back to the James 4:10, right? Humbling yourself.
Well, I think, God put that in there because it's easy. It says, humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, so at the right time, he can exalt us.
Yeah.
He's saying there is a time for you to be recognized for something, but it's after you humble yourself. I think people want to get to the exalting phase.
Yeah.
But, you tell people, because God's word says at the right time, the appropriate time.
It can be super hard to humble yourself, though, Tom. Like personality like mine, personality like yours.
Mike, just get on the freeway. There's an off ramp. There's an off ramp in our town. It's called Bakersfield, California. Getting on the West Side Parkway from Allen, going west. It's like a race.
Oh,
There's two lanes that turn into one, and everybody wants the lane.
Uh-huh.
and it's honestly, I leave a Bible study that you and I attend, and in 5 minutes later, I'm on that off ramp, and it's on, baby.
Yeah.
I come in there, put my car in sport mode. I'm ready.
Yeah, uh-huh.
And
I know.
and it can change your mind from.
My wife said she's like, we live on in East Bakersfield, which we love the east side of town, by the way. But she's like, I come over to the west side of town, and everybody's just like, it's like a racetrack everywhere you go.
It is, and that has a hard time of making yourself humble yourself.
It does.
Well, I'll pull behind this vehicle and just drive 45 miles an hour.
Good luck.
Which I did yesterday, and then I couldn't get around. But I just thought, I'll just practice patience. The good thing was I was not I wasn't being dictated by the clock. So humility is such a necessity, but it's such a hard trait to pull out.
But going back to why it matters is because like that's how God can work on you when you're in that moldable state that, all right, I'm submitted.
When you think you're not all that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's true. I mean, when you're at that moment, and let's just say it, we all know that. It's the persona we put on, right?
Yeah.
It is. I mean, I'm who I am because of the car I drive.
Well, a lot of times it's almost like a protective mechanism.
Well, I used to tell a lot of people, and I think I've told you this, Mike, when I was bodybuilding and I was a lot larger than I am now, I would tell people that bodybuilding is the only sport you can wear. Well, that was kind of egotistical for me back then because I'm not that anymore. And so as you think about those things, it's always circumstances or circumstantial. Maybe it's the bank account that you have in, but Mike, how quickly can that go?
Yeah.
Bad investment, market makes a turn, whatever. So many things that are out of your control. I tell people in this market we're in right now.
Bad president gets elected.
Yeah. That's relevant rants on Friday.
Sorry.
We don't want to kick that one off. But it's so true. A lot of people tell me, well, that's why I don't play the stock market. I go, do you have 401k? Do you have retirement? You're playing stock markets.
Yeah.
Or the people you trust with your money are playing the stock market.
Hey, but you know what, Tom? We know some pretty wealthy people that aren't big believers in the stock market.
Yeah, I know. Well, I agree. So there again, we're not telling you investment tips. We're just saying.
No, that's not what this show's about.
There's humility that will go beyond just who you are. It's what you're becoming.
So how do you do it?
Well, I think it's your perspective, Mike.
Yeah. And well, I think when we go back to service, like how we serve, I just kind of like wrote down 3 main points here. One is with humility, and I think we talked quite a bit about that. But then with the true heart of service, right? Like, and Ludavia and I, we talked about this in our marriage, right? Like we both approach marriage with a heart of service. We want to serve each other, right? And she's much better at it than I am, by the way. But I think that's just natural for a woman to be better at that than a guy. But when we did our Valentine's Day special, there was like, who does all the chores? And every single guy said, I do 0. The women do all of them, right?
My wife gave me some credit, which she took back when she saw that I said 0. She goes, you're right. I gave you 10%. Not yet.
But we approach it with the heart of service because we care and want to serve the other person, right?
Yeah. Mike, and I think this can go back to something that you and I fell in love with, is helping our first responders.
Yeah.
Because I don't care what job you have. I don't care how much money's in your bank account. But there are certain times that you do want to dial 911.
Yeah.
And you want somebody to show up to your house. And I tell people, because I've been a chaplain at the Bakersfield City Fire Department for over 2 decades. And I say sometimes we meet people at their worst point of their life. Would it be in a fire? Would it be in a medical emergency? Would it be in an accident? You've heard my stories, Mike. But people are at a very humble state when somebody else is helping them. Mm-hmm. Maybe you're the injured one. Maybe your loved ones are there being injured. And I always tell people that we always, and I'm just going to say this, you're a fireman, you could text me, you could hate me, be a hater. But we don't always leave the situation better than we found it. Because, if your house is on fire, we're going to come in with hammers and water.
Yeah.
And we're going to leave with the fire put out.
Then they can call our good friend Steve and he'll come fix it.
Well, I'm just saying. so I'm just saying there is that point where I don't care where you came from. You may be the most famous actor around on the biggest hit or the biggest movie around. And it didn't. Look at Jeremy Renner right now. It's funny. His neighbor was a doctor
Mm-hmm.
when he wrecked on his snowplow,
Yeah.
which he was doing a good
He
service
got
for other
tore up,
people.
man.
Well, but you know what he was doing? He was snowplowing people's property.
Yeah.
So the doctor that was working on him was saying, "I wanted to meet you, but not like this."
Yeah.
But Jeremy Renner, who's a famous actor, was very happy that doctor was there,
yeah.
because you're not in the position of my comfort zone.
That's humility, right?
Yes,
That's a
it
humbling
is.
moment.
Yeah, it is.
But the Bible also says his yoke is easy, his burden is
Burden
light,
is
right?
light.
So how do you serve other people? And it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't
No.
have to be hard,
No.
right? It's. I really think it truly is more about an attitude of service than it is what the action or act is, right?
You know, Mike, I carry a card in my wallet, and I carry some bags in my car. If I run into somebody that's needing more than I can give,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times they'll think that they want money from you. We all pass people on the off ramps and
Mhm.
stuff, but a lot of times I'll give them a number that's a service that they can call out for
Yeah.
to get help, whether it's housing, mental health, medical help, food, clothes, whatever it is. But there is a part where they need to be involved also, and I find sometimes when you give people that kind of help, they're expecting something else like money.
Yeah.
You know, and it's maybe that they aren't a good manager of money. They could be a victim of circumstance, which I think is very possible. But I think too, that's when you find out the heart, because I always bring a brown bag, which is food.
Mm-hmm.
Has a little devotional in it and has enough food in it to sustain them for a day,
Well,
to get help from a service that they can get provided for.
I was at the gas station by my house the other day, the Fast Trip, you know, the one, and I pulled up and the guy was like, "Hey, can I wash your windows?" And I was like, "You can, but I don't have any cash." He's like, "Oh, that's okay. Can I just wash them anyway, just because I want to do something nice for you?" I was like, "Oh my gosh, that melted my heart."
Mhm.
So after that, I was like, "All right, well, can I buy you some food?" And he was like, "Yeah." And he was so, you know, sometimes.
It changed your attitude,
Oh,
didn't it, Mike?
well, it did, but sometimes these guys they have like, no, I don't want food, I just want your money, right? But this
We
guy
encountered
didn't.
that in Los
Oh,
Angeles.
oh yeah, that was rough.
Mike got me in trouble with a homeless guy.
Well, I mean, that wasn't really my fault.
No, you
but
just were breaking eye contact.
yeah, he was yeah,
Which he wasn't appreciative of.
He was a little unstable,
He was aggressive.
extremely.
Yeah.
But this guy was like,
You handled it well, though, Mike.
I tried.
Yeah, you did.
But this guy, because he did that, I was like, "Can I buy you some food?" And he was like, "Yeah." So I went inside and I got a burrito and some. And I'm not trying to say this because I'm great as Mike. No, and it was like Mike's the least of these, right? But I got him food and I got him warm food and a drink and everything else. Because I wanted like his heart of service to serve me, and I was like, man, this is such a blessing. So I wanted to return the favor.
It does. Something about when you find somebody that's truly in the right attitude of gratitude,
Yeah.
you'll get a lot more done.
Oh yeah.
You know, what's the old saying? You get a lot more with honey than you
Well,
do.
I had this conversation
vinegar.
with my kids the other day. My son was arguing with my daughter about doing some work, and you know how they sometimes go out and try to sell stuff or whatever. He was yelling at her, and I was like, I had to take a time out, but like the kind of short version of this is I had to lecture him, and not more so coach him than lecture. And I was like, Michael, do you want her to help you? Yeah. Luella, do you want to help him? Yeah. Okay. You understand, like, do you see daddy going and yelling at the people that work for him? No. Okay. Because if I did, they would quit. Right. And, but I just had to tell him, like, you have to approach people with love, and like, it was cool because you could tell he got it.
You know, Mike, I think as you work with people, there's always a point where you have to teach people on how to resolve conflict.
Yeah.
Because conflict is something we deal with all the time. I was at a four-way stop the other day, and we all pulled up at the same time. So in my head, I'm thinking, so does the person on the right go first? Because that person's on my right, but that person's on their right. So we sat there, and we're all just stopped. And I was like, you've been there.
Yeah.
And so I just said, I'm going to wait until they go first. And it started to become a little bit complicated, but I did. I waited, and I was very thankful that I just did it, but I had time to wait. But that was conflict resolution. I'm just
Yeah.
like, hey, I'm not going. I'm just waiting for them to go first.
So do you want to give us your closing thoughts here?
You know, my closing thought for humility is it's a state of mind.
Yeah.
It's one you have to be conscious of, and it's one that isn't hard. You know, this morning when I got up, I've been trying to get a better percentage of helping around the house. Because on the
Up from
Valentine,
0? I don't think you can get worse.
On the Valentine special, I told my wife I was getting better, and she said I was. So this morning the dishwasher light said clean, and there was dishes in the sink. I was up first. Animals were fed. They were out in the backyard playing, and so I started taking the dishes out. My wife got up, and I thought, oh, she's going to think that I set this up. And I didn't. Didn't say a word. Took them out, put them in, and later she said, I would really want to thank you for that. And I go, well, there's no expectations. There's nothing about that.
Yeah.
But there's opportunities that you can find all day long to help others.
And I think like kind of the two takeaways for me is, one, like look for areas where you can serve other people. God will bless that, and humble yourself before he has to do it for you.
Ooh, that's a big one.
Yeah.
In conclusion, I'm just saying it's worth it.
Yeah. So thanks for watching. Have a great day. Remember to like, subscribe, leave a comment, and God bless.